People are very good at lying. On social media, people do not always show what is really happening. Here's someone boasting about their third supercar, which feels really good to drive. Some people go to a very expensive and prestigious restaurant. Others flaunt their perfect figures. Everyone wants to appear perfect to others because they hide their flaws and exaggerate their virtues. Even when they are in a relationship, they do not fully disclose everything about themselves. You can never know what a person is hiding or what their past looks like. Why does she trust other people when she meets them? Probably because she doesn't have to worry about it. She can see all the secrets that a person wants to hide with her own eyes. Gijoo Sunbae won the main prize again. Everyone spread the news at the speed of sound. Every time she participated in a competition, she won. They thought it was strange. Usually, she did not participate in competitions that were not prestigious. But lately, she has been taking part in even those. One of the girls mockingly said that the girl was doing it all because of her boyfriend. She spends all her money on him. The girls couldn't believe Gijoo was so romantic. One of them said that she wasn't and that she was just a sucker. The girl went to the same school as her. Gijoo's ex-boyfriend used to cry all the time that he would be able to go to the Seoul University with his abilities. She was caught writing an application on behalf of her boyfriend, which caused a big scandal. When she entered college, she developed a relationship with a high school student nicknamed the Leopard. When he passed all his classes with Gijoo's help, he then traded her for another. The girl smilingly told that Gijoo is so stupid that she lets the guys twist her around their fingers until they suck all the juices out of her. Since then, she has seemed miserable and has caused many rumors related to it. Gijoo casually eavesdropped on what the girls were saying about her, looking at her phone screen, which was showing a notification of a successful money transfer to her boyfriend. Suddenly, her friend came up behind her and asked why Gijoo was standing in the corridor and not going inside. They were eagerly waiting for her to tell them her strategy for winning competitions. The girl did not understand what they wanted from her, what strategy they were talking about. She was just going home. Kim Sang-soon still tried to stop her. She told her not to be such a bore and went inside with her. She agreed to go to them and listen to their requests. Still, she did not understand what they wanted from her. The meeting was held in the local library. Gong Gijoo sat down across from them and asked what they were interested in learning. The girls immediately asked what she would do with the money she won. One of them was most interested in this. Gong Gijoo thought about it for a while and decided to treat the club to a meal and buy snacks for everyone for the evening. But her friend commented with a sneer, "Will there be enough money for dinner after she gives all the money to her boyfriend?" Gong Gijoo was angry, but the girl continued laughing and said that she just knew what a loving person she was. By the way, she asked how long they had been together and what faculty her boyfriend was from. The girl had a very beautiful ring on her finger. The girls were jealous when they saw the ring on the girl's finger. They knew that such rings were for couples, but they had never seen one on a girl. The ring looked unusual. The girls asked if she and Jimin had bought it together. The girl replied that they had seen the rings in a shop, liked them very much, and bought them without hesitation. Kim Sang-soon asked why they suddenly decided to buy a couple rings. The girl's curiosity was boundless. They asked if it was her boyfriend who suggested buying them. She answered that she wanted to, and her boyfriend is so attentive he listens to everything she says. My friend commented with suspicion. Why did she think he was cute because he bought her all kinds of trinkets? Gong Gijoo got angry and said that she liked him not because he buys her whatever she wants, and not even because of his handsome face, but because he's very smart and reads a lot of books. He reads a lot of books of different genres. Research shows that people who read a lot have a high level of emotional intelligence. They are very good socially. One of the girls slyly remarked that this was why she had such relationships. She thought Gijoo had high standards when it came to guys. Gong Gijoo was very surprised. She said that she respects people who read a lot and have high intelligence. Her friend told her not to take offense and, laughing, added that some people are just born to give everything. The girl said her friend that she had been talking nonsense from the very beginning. She wasn't interested in such a conversation. Suddenly the door opened, and a girl loudly shouted that Hail Sunbai was treating everyone to lunch and asked who would go. The girls, like mad, jumped up from their seats and, stumbling, quickly ran out of the room. The others were chasing after them, shouting that they hadn't finished the conversation yet. The young people gathered around the handsome guy, asking what he was going to treat them to. The young man smiled warmly and asked who wanted what. The girl was curious about who he was. She hadn't seen him around the college before. Kim Sang-soon said that it was Hail Sunbai who had returned. Everyone complimented the guy, saying that he had become much more handsome. And then Gijoo remembered that all the professors used to set him as an example, asking about him and showing his work. They noted that he was very polite. The friend confirmed that he was exactly as the professors had described him. Sang-soon was surprised that he decided to treat everyone to dinner and asked if it was even legal for someone to be that handsome. The friend was impressed by him and said that if she ever dated someone, he would definitely have to look like him, handsome and with an incredible reputation. Gong Gijoo remarked that her Jimin was also good-looking, and on top of that, he treated her very well. The friend didn't believe that the girl was telling the truth. Although she wore his ring, it didn't necessarily mean anything. The girl looked at her hand, and the ring didn't seem as pretty to her as it did at the beginning. Finally, the girl stepped out of the college and into the fresh air. She was very irritated. Still, she tried to calm herself, telling herself that her ring was the best. The girl walked quickly, not seeing anything in front of her due to the whirlwind of thoughts. The girl thought that her friend and her boyfriend Jimin Appa would have liked the ring too. She didn't notice how she bumped into a guy. She apologized, and when she looked up, she saw the guy. He asked anxiously what was wrong with her face and what had happened. Why was she so upset? Gijoo looked up and was surprised to see her boyfriend. She asked how he had ended up here. Jimin said that she had sent him money again. He wanted to get angry, but when he saw the girl with such an expression on her face, he changed his mind. Gong Gijoo asked if he had come to her only because of that. The guy replied that yes, he had planned to return them, but it didn't matter once he saw the angry girl. Perhaps someone had hurt her. The girl couldn't stop thinking about her friend's words, about how she had called her a fool who spends all her money on her boyfriend, and that she was so naive and trusting. Gong Gijoo asked the guy if he also thought she was imprudent and foolish. When she was left by the leopard, it was him who helped her. This is her way of thanking him, as he's going through tough times right now, and that's why she is helping him. Since childhood, the girl believed that she could never live in debt. Even when she was a child and needed to borrow a pencil from a friend, she felt uncomfortable. The next day, for having been given a single pencil to use, she returned a whole box. That's how she felt at ease. But unfortunately, this trait of hers became poison in her relationships. At first, people were surprised and grateful, but over time, they started to treat her as if she owed them something. When Jimin gave her the ring, he didn't ask for anything in return. The girl liked it. No one had ever done that for her before. They always supported each other. The guy suddenly said that when Gong Gijoo said like that, it feels like they are strangers. In a relationship, it's normal to support each other when things get really tough. The guy smiled and said that he treated her well not for any benefit, so she didn't need to give him money or buy anything. The girl looked at him in admiration, thinking that Jimin was different from all the other guys. The guy suddenly handed her a bag and said that her mom had sent them kimchi. He suggested they go and eat it quickly. Her mom made the best kimchi. The girl asked if he had been to their place. Jimin said that today was Friday, the busiest day at the restaurant. He had gone to help out. He never took her love for granted and always thought about what more he could do for her. That's why he wanted to help her parents. She asked him not to go there too often, understanding that it was difficult since he was constantly going for auditions. And then the guy confessed to Gijoo that he didn't succeed in this audition either. The guy said with sadness that the girl was probably already disappointed in him because of his constant failures at auditions. He promised to try even harder next time. The girl cupped his face in her hands and tried to comfort and reassure him. She believed in him, and next time, everything would work out. Gijoo genuinely couldn't understand how anyone could reject such a handsome guy, especially since he was a graduate of a prestigious drama department. It's true. Her boyfriend dreamed of becoming an actor, but because his parents didn't financially support him, he faced difficulties with money. That's why she actively participated in various competitions. The monetary rewards from winning competitions were for her the best way to show her love. When the young couple came at the guy's home, he remembered that there was nothing to eat, but the girl said it was okay and that she wasn't hungry. He still wanted to go and get her favorite joke ball, but the girl said it was too expensive and suggested they go together. Jimin told her not to worry, that she should stay home and rest. Jimin Appa was different from anyone she had met so far, so she thought. So she wanted to give him everything she had. She imagined herself wearing beautiful lingerie and being very bold. Gong Gijoo was embarrassed. After all, she was ashamed of such actions. Although she was nervous due to her lack of experience, the girl wanted to give everything to Jimin. She wondered if he wouldn't be moved and cry from happiness if she wore it all for their 100-day anniversary. The girl heard vibrations next to her. It turned out to be her boyfriend's phone, which he had forgotten in the bag. She thought to herself that he was such a scatterbrain. In a way, it was even cute. Suddenly, a group chat opened, and there was a message calling her boyfriend a jerk. It was a whole chat with his friends, where they were discussing her boyfriend and their relationship. There were her photos, and the guys were discussing her appearance, as well as how silly she was for paying for everything for him. She sat there for a long time, reading this disgusting conversation. She couldn't believe that people could just discuss their relationship like that. Jimin had forwarded almost all of her photos to them, and his friends mocked her for paying for his tuition at the acting school. Jimin had forwarded almost all of her photos to them, and his friends mocked her for paying for his tuition at the acting school. She couldn't believe it. All the photos, everything she had done for him. Why had he shared it with his friends? It felt like a betrayal. She sat down on the bed, feeling the urge to ask her boyfriend a few questions. Meanwhile, the guy returned home with the shopping. He was shivering from the cold, completely frozen. He handed her the bag with groceries, saying that he had to run to avoid freezing. He mentioned that he had brought Gijoo her favorite jock ball. Suddenly, he noticed that the girl was holding his phone in her hands. He realized that the open chat hadn't sat well with her. The guy realized that his girlfriend didn't like this. Fear and panic overwhelmed him. In his panic, he dropped the bag of groceries. Everything spilled out and scattered across the floor. Jimin asked, confused, why she was holding his phone. Gong Gijoo didn't say anything and decided to just leave. Jimin tried to defend himself, saying it wasn't what she thought. He tried to explain his actions, insisting that things weren't like they seemed. The girl didn't want to listen to him. She felt hurt and uncomfortable. She walked away because she had no desire to argue or try to figure out their relationship. Jimin grabbed her hand, trying to stop her. He grabbed her by the shoulders and pleaded with her to listen to him. He didn't want to hurt her. The girl felt like crying from the hurt because she had trusted him and never expected such a betrayal. Jimin tried to justify himself, saying it wasn't serious, that he just wanted to show off in front of his friends. He said she knew what kind of situation he was in. All his friends were moving forward in life, while he was stuck in place. Gong Gijoo was stunned that he just wanted to boast. She couldn't believe he hadn't thought about the way he was portraying her. Didn't he understand that his friends were simply mocking her? Jimin tried to apologize to the girl, saying that aside from her, he had nothing else to boast about. The girl lowered her head and quietly said that instead of doing that in front of his friends, he should have prepared better for the audition. He looked pathetic. He thought that if the girl kept saying everything was fine, it must have been true, but she was just trying to support him. Gong Gijoo didn't know how she could have trusted someone like that. The girl said that if he had even a tiny bit of common sense, he wouldn't be living so aimlessly. She said that if he didn't have the gift for acting, he needed to accept it and find another way to make a living. Suddenly, the guy's eyes lit up with anger, and he swung his hand over the girl with a grimace of rage. There was a resounding slap, and the girl fell to the floor, pressing her palm firmly against her aching cheek. Gong Gijoo hadn't expected a guy to behave like that. Once again, she blamed herself for trusting the wrong person again, despite all the times she had been betrayed. Jimin regretted his actions a few seconds later. The girl heard nothing, feeling hurt and offended. She no longer cared about any excuses he could offer. She said that once again she had been reckless, trusting him. She just wanted to leave quickly, to escape and not see the pathetic look on his face. The guy ran after her, apologizing, saying that he wasn't himself. He admitted he was ashamed of his actions. Gijoo stopped, holding back her tears. She wanted to say everything she thought about him. She didn't want to listen to him, as no words could justify his actions. She believed in him, even when everyone around her told her it wasn't worth it. She thought that this time it would be different, because before, she had to deal with people who took advantage of her kindness. Even when he gave her that fake toy ring, she was happy and considered it the best gesture of affection. Gong Gijoo got angry, saying that she was genuinely happy, and he was just bastard. The girl took off the ring from her finger and threw it at his feet. The girl told him that they were no longer together, and that she never wanted to see him again. Jimin begged her not to jump to conclusions, trying to hold her back. He didn't want everything to end so badly. He wanted Gong Gijoo to stay and listen to him, to understand his actions. The girl, trying to break free from his tight grip, didn't notice that her foot slipped off the step. Fear and panic gripped her when she realized that she no longer felt the steps beneath her feet. Jimin didn't manage to catch her in time. He saw her rapidly falling downward. The last thing she saw was the guy's face grabbing air instead of her hand and screaming her name. Falling, the girl wondered what the hell was happening. She couldn't understand why she was so unlucky and what she had done to deserve all the bad things that kept happening to her. She thought, what was wrong with her? Her ex had publicly humiliated her, leaving her for another girl. Another guy had left her because she wrote an essay for him for his college application, and they were caught. Having spent her whole life surrounded by people who amounted to nothing, she found herself once again in the same situation. She blamed herself for not being a good judge of character and not being able to distinguish between good people and trash. If only someone had taught her, if only she knew how to recognize the trash around her, she wouldn't have ended up in this situation. Gong Gijoo regained consciousness, feeling pain all over her body. She suddenly sat up, realizing that she was in the hospital. She was lying in a hospital bed. After looking around a little, she realized that she had lost consciousness when she fell down the stairs. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice. The guy was happily talking about how she couldn't even imagine how much he had worried about her. Jimin was kneeling before her, apologizing for what had happened, but the girl couldn't hear him. In shock, she stared at the surrounding him windows filled with ratings and reviews. It looked like the kind of feedback people leave online. Above the guy's head, his rating glowed based on all the reviews and ratings about him. He had only 2 stars. All of these windows were reviews from his ex-girlfriends. Reading them, Gijoo was in shock. It turned out that he had shared all the details of their relationships with his friends and was physically abusive. The guy explained that yesterday, overwhelmed with anxiety, he wasn't himself. Common sense had left him. He realized that he had made many foolish mistakes. He had failed the audition and was feeling down. That's why he didn't realize what he was doing. Jimin kept saying that she knew he wasn't the kind of person to do such things. But Gong Gijoo, horrified, kept reading all the reviews written by his ex-girlfriends, realizing that she didn't know him at all. It felt so strange. She thought maybe it was just her imagination playing tricks on her. And then, suddenly, she thought that for someone like her, who never understood people well, this was like a gift, a chance to finally make things better. At first she thought it was a dream or that she hit her head and became schizophrenic. These were the thoughts that were present in her head. Jimin's voice was heard faintly. He blurted out that it was a terrible misunderstanding. Suddenly, amidst all these windows, the girl saw her name with a review. These were the feelings she had once experienced for him. Her review was the only positive one, filled with words she often told herself when she was near him, that he was perfect and that she loved him. Now, she looked at it with horror and disgust. Suddenly, she noticed a few names she recognized. Gong Gijoo couldn't believe her eyes and couldn't understand what was happening. How could it be that she was seeing everything Jimin's ex-girlfriends had thought about him? She felt someone tugging at her hand and calling her name loudly. She saw Jimin holding her hand, repeatedly saying the same words. He kept insisting that they wouldn't break up over something so trivial, that they weren't the type of couple to just fall apart over something like this. The girl stared at him, asking again. She was shocked that he didn't consider his actions a big problem. He said he didn't push her on purpose. She had provoked him, so it was just a momentary lapse in judgment. Wrenching her hand from his, she screamed loudly. How could he talk about what had happened as a minor incident? Instead of catching her hand, he stood and watched her fall down the stairs. Suddenly, Gong Gijoo looked at her hand and noticed the ring on her finger. She was surprised, wondering why it was on her finger and where it had come from. In a fit of anger, she had taken it off her finger yesterday and thrown it far away. She didn't want to wear his gift because it wasn't sincere. Jimin said that he had put the ring back on her finger. He thought she had taken it off in a fit of anger, but that she would regret it later. The surprised girl asked why he thought it was just a moment of anger. She said they were breaking up because she didn't want anything to do with someone who had betrayed her. The guy said that the more he explained his actions, the more she misunderstood him. He suggested they talk about it later and said he would go get the doctor. The girl hardly listened to him. The girl tried to stop him, but he did everything arbitrarily and quickly ran out of the room. She angrily watched him leave, but then suddenly wondered why she kept seeing those windows above his head. Gong Gijoo rubbed her eyes. She thought that all of this was just a result of the trauma. It looked as if they were reviews for some product. It really did look like a review for a movie or some kind of dish, only these were reviews about Jimin. One review mentioned that he shares every detail of his life with his friends, including private moments. Another review described the systematic abuse and how the girl regretted never speaking out about it. Another girl wrote about how every time Jimin was in a bad mood, he would take out his anger on her. She didn't want to believe it. After all, she had never noticed anything like that before. Reading them, she could quickly understand what kind of person was standing beside her. Judging by the reviews, she wasn't the first one he had raised his hand to. It seemed like it was a part of his everyday life. The worst part was that she couldn't ask openly if it was true, because how could she explain where she got this information from? She was about to leave the room when suddenly Kim Sang-soon appeared at the door, loudly and anxiously calling her name. Gong Gijoo, startled, also screamed. Sang-soon visited her to check how she was feeling after such an injury. The girl asked her not to shout as they were in the hospital. Her friend was terrified when she found out that Gijoo had fallen down the stairs. To her surprise, the girl saw the same review windows and ratings above Sang-soon's head. Gong Gijoo replied that she was feeling fine. However, she couldn't understand why she was seeing those strange windows with writings again. Her friend asked how she managed to fall down the stairs. Gong Gijoo stood silently, staring at one spot. The girl could see reviews from her friend's ex-boyfriends, and in shock, she stared at them. What she read was different from what she knew about her friend. She decided that since it was Sang-soon, she could ask her the truth. She grabbed her friend by the shoulders and demanded that she answer her question honestly. The girl agreed, but she could see how strangely Gong Gijoo was acting. The girl asked if she had broken up with her previous boyfriend because of his public birthday greeting to her. Kim Sang-soon was angry that her friend asked her about it. Why did she bring it up now, when she had been humiliated so much at that time? And she broke up with her boyfriend Jaehoon because he didn't want to be intimate. He dreamed of marriage and children. He wanted a girl to take on all the responsibility. Kim Sang-soon blushed with shame and started shouting, asking how her friend knew about this, wondering if Ji-hoon had told her. Hearing this, Gong Gijoo was in shock and said she couldn't believe that her friend had treated the poor guy so cruelly. Sang-soon tried to defend herself, saying that he had hurt her first. Gong Gijoo paused, deep in thought. So, everything that was written in those reviews was the absolute truth. The friend was worried and asked where Gong Gijoo had heard all of this. Opening her mouth, the girl didn't know how to explain this to her friend. After her story, she might think she had lost her mind. Suddenly, Kim Sang-soon noticed a bruise on her friend's face and asked where it came from, considering she had fallen down the stairs. Jimin entered the room, informing the girl that the doctor would be here soon. He noticed how loudly the two friends were talking and fell silent. When Sang-soon looked closely, she asked if someone had hit Gijoo, because the bruise on her face did not look like a bruise from a fall. Jimin quickly tried to leave, not wanting the girl to reveal his actions. He explained that he had forgotten about his audition at the acting school. The friend was surprised that Gijoo was in the hospital, and yet the guy was leaving her. After all, she had supported him in everything, despite her own needs. Jimin quickly explained that he was in a hurry and rushed out the door. Sang-soon called after him, trying to express her discontent. Gong Gijoo grabbed her friend by the arm, holding her back. She explained that she wanted to rest and that Jimin needed to go and take care of his own matters. She confessed to her that it was he who hit her in the face. It was because of their argument that she fell down the stairs. Kim Sang-soon was in shock. She was outraged and asked why the girl had told her about it so late. She would have beaten him up for doing that. Gijoo said that everything was fine now because she would never see him again. They had broken up for good. The girl listened attentively to her friend's story. Suddenly, she said that it was strange, that they had broken up, yet the girl still continued to wear his ring so carefully. Gong Gijoo explained that she had thrown it away during their argument, but the guy put it back on her finger while she was unconscious. She said that now she would take it off once and for all. After removing the ring from her finger, she didn't see any more windows with reviews near the girl. She didn't understand how it was connected. What strange circumstances tied the ring to her imagination? She put the ring back on. The windows with reviews reappeared as if by magic. Gong Gijoo carefully took it off again. She was curious if it really had something to do with the ring. Kim Sang-soon looked at her friend with irritation, not understanding what she was doing. Gong Gijoo kept putting the ring on and taking it off, unable to believe what it meant. It seemed to her like some sort of mockery from fate. She angrily threw the ring away, screaming, "What the hell? Why does it have to be this ring?" The girl grabbed her head, muttering that she could only see the reviews when the ring was on her finger, and without it, she saw nothing. Sang-soon, looking at her like she was crazy, asked if everything was all right. Gijoo stared at the ring on the floor, wondering where it had come from and why, with it, she was able to see all these reviews. For a moment, the girl paused to think, but no answer came to her mind. All these events seemed absurd, and she couldn't find a logical explanation for what was happening. When she was falling down the stairs, she thought it was her fault, that she just wasn't good at reading people. Why had no one taught her how to choose her friends wisely? To be able to see, at first glance, the true intentions and the deceit people are capable of. If only she knew how to recognize the trash around her. Maybe she wouldn't have had to suffer so much. If that had happened, she wouldn't have ended up in this situation. After all, this wasn't the first time something like this had happened to her. The girl suddenly froze and thought to herself, could it be that her wish had been granted in such an unusual way? Gong Gijoo stood tense, not noticing that her friend was starting to feel uneasy about her strange behavior. Sang-soon called out to the girl, noticing that she needed to rest. She seemed too nervous and agitated. She decided to leave, but said that she knew she had liked Jimin, and that parting with him was difficult and unpleasant for her. The girl gently closed the door behind her, watching through the window as Gijoo continued to mumble something about the ring, thinking to herself that she looked like a madwoman. Gong Gijoo thought that she had truly lost her mind. But with such an injury, it was impossible. The trauma and damage she had sustained were minor and could not have led to such a tragic outcome. She looked at the ring and repeated that it couldn't be. It was impossible. After thinking about it all night, the girl found herself at the store where she and Jimin had bought the ring. She decided that it was the only place where she could get answers to her questions. She was worried whether the seller would know anything about the abilities of the ring she had bought. Suddenly, the girl heard a familiar voice behind her. She turned around and was very surprised to see Jimin standing right by the store as well. She asked in surprise what he was doing there. The guy replied that he had been walking near the university, hoping to see her. Honestly, he didn't understand why they had to break up. He knew she was angry, but he had apologized and explained everything. Gijoo thought, how could she have ever liked this guy? What was she thinking when she trusted him? Jimin tried to assure the girl, saying that she knew he couldn't live without her. Gijoo didn't believe in the sincerity of his words, realizing that he depended on her because he was getting money for his needs. Even now, he couldn't survive without the money she gave him every day. He didn't even have enough to pay for his apartment next month. The girl told him that he didn't need to try so hard to flatter her. She didn't believe in his sincerity or feelings for her. She was already about to leave, but the guy wouldn't let her go. He wanted to continue their argument, to sort things out. Jimin started raising his voice at her again. He didn't like the accusations his girlfriend was making. At that moment, a guy with a large box was walking by them, completely ignoring the situation. Gong Gijoo made a firm decision that it was time to end the relationship for good. With frustration, she offered to pay her ex's rent for the next month, knowing that this was exactly what he needed from her. She asked him, did he really think he's worth that much? Jimin, again in a fit of anger, raised his hand to hit the girl. The girl squinted her eyes, and the only thought running through her mind was that he was about to hurt her again. But he didn't notice the guy passing by and accidentally bumped into him, knocking the box out of his hands. The box opened and a toy robot fell out, breaking into pieces as it hit the ground. Jimin got angry and asked who the guy was and why he was interfering in their relationship. The tall guy stood silently, looking at him with surprise for a moment. Jimin said that the road was wide and there was no need to walk right next to them. Gong Gijoo opened one eye and saw a familiar face in front of her. She had heard about him at university from her friends and had seen from afar how handsome he was. He was the legendary sunbai that the whole university was proud of. Hale continued to stand silently, staring at the broken robot lying at Jimin's feet. The confident gaze of the sunbai intimidated Jimin. He softened his tone, trying to explain that he was apologizing to his girlfriend and that the guy was at fault for walking too close to them. Jimin noticed how tall he was, and probably very strong. He felt insecure and scared, overwhelmed by the presence of the imposing figure standing before him. Suddenly his phone rang in his pocket. Jimin thought it was his salvation. He picked up the phone and greeted the caller. He responded that he would be there immediately and would approach. He shouted that they were lucky because he had urgent matters to attend to. Quickly, he made his way toward the exit, eager to leave them behind. Gong Gijoo and Hale both realized that the guy had fled, clearly terrified by the appearance of the other man. The girl was even more disappointed in him. She never thought he was the type to just get scared and run away. The sunbai looked at the girl, who was acting confused and didn't know what to say. She even felt embarrassed by her ex-boyfriend's actions. She looked at the broken toy and asked what to do, as it was completely shattered. She said she was really sorry. She said, feeling confused, that she would replace it with a new one. She was really sorry that it happened to his item. Hyle apologized for interrupting their conversation, but mentioned that the situation seemed uncomfortable. He offered to walk her home. He was worried that the guy might return and cause her harm. She was surprised and didn't expect that a stranger would show such care for her just like that. It made her feel both touched and a little confused. But the rumors about him were good. He was said to be talented, well-mannered, and incredibly handsome. If she were to start seeing someone, she should choose someone like him, handsome and with a good reputation. Indeed, the rumors turned out to be true. Now she understood why her friend had praised him so much. But then she saw his rating and reviews. Meanwhile, the guy asked if the girl had gotten hurt anywhere. In the shock and surprise, the girl's bag slipped off her shoulder. Looking at the guy, she saw a window next to him displaying his lowest rating. She couldn't understand what was wrong with him, since Sang-soon, who never had good relationships with her exes, got a rating of 3.5. Jimin, who had a history of being violent with his ex-girlfriends, had a rating of 2. Hyle extended his hand with a warm smile, but the girl stood frozen in shock, staring at the reviews about him. Gijoo stood frozen, unable to comprehend how this could be, wondering if perhaps there had been a mistake. The person who had positive reviews from everyone around him, someone who was well-mannered and considerate, had a rating of 0.5. Why did this highly regarded sensitive guy have a lower rating than Jimin? What kind of relationship did he have, and why does he have so many reviews? In her confusion, the girl anxiously scanned the reviews with her eyes, some of which made her feel embarrassed to read. Gong Gijoo helped gather the scattered contents of the package and handed it back to the guy. Hale was surprised, as girls usually always showed interest, or at least tried to show their liking for him. But this girl was completely different. She seemed frightened and focused on something entirely different, not on him. This made him feel a certain sense of unease. The girl offered to replace the broken toy. She felt uncomfortable, realizing that because of her, the guy had gotten into trouble with his purchase. The sunbae told the girl that he knew her. He had heard a lot about her from acquaintances at university. He said he knew her name was Gong Gijoo and that he had seen her name on all the banners everywhere. The guy said his name was Yoon Hyle and extended his hand to greet her. She felt embarrassed that he knew her and probably had heard some unpleasant rumors about her. The sunbae asked her if the young man who ran away was really her boyfriend. The atmosphere felt tense. The girl felt embarrassed. It was uncomfortable for her to admit that she had been in a relationship with that guy. She quickly corrected herself and said that he was her ex-boyfriend. Hyle smiled mysteriously and said that he understood. She was very ashamed that she had been with such a guy, someone who tried to hit her and humiliate her. She repeated it several times, emphasizing that he was her ex-boyfriend. The guy asked the girl why she was here so early. Surely she had something to do and was in a hurry. The girl indeed remembered that she was heading to the shop to find out more about the toy ring. "Nothing serious," the girl replied. "Just some small trinkets she wanted to check out in the shop as she was passing by." She said that she was curious about the toy shop that had opened here. She thought about how he had seen the scene where Jimin almost hit her, and if she told him that they had bought toy couple rings here, it would make her look foolish. Gong Gijoo seemed to be justifying herself to him. She felt uncomfortable and didn't know how to act. To her relief, she heard voices behind her calling out to the sunbae, telling him that they were already late. Hyle apologized and said that he had to leave. He told the girl to take care of herself and wished her a good day. The girl let out a relieved sigh. She thought that it must have seemed strange to him that she was wearing a couple ring, especially after just saying she had broken up with her boyfriend. She had no other choice. She needed to understand all the abilities of the ring. Gong Gijoo quickly entered the shop, determined to learn all about this strange phenomenon that happens when she wears this ring. The store clerk, after listening to the girl, said that he had never seen or sold such rings before. The girl insisted that they had indeed bought the rings recently, right from this very shop. She didn't understand what was going on and why the seller said that he had seen it for the first time in his shop. As she left the store, the girl pondered how this could be. Why was it only she who saw these review windows? After all, Jimin had the exact same ring, If he could see them, with his personality, he wouldn't have kept quiet and would have definitely told her everything. In her thoughts, she hadn't realized how far she'd walked until she found herself at their family restaurant. She quickly told her mother that she was home. She noticed the owner of the hardware store in their restaurant. He mentioned he had heard that she had been hospitalized due to an accident. The man then asked how she was feeling. She politely responded to the man that she was fine and there were no serious consequences. But then, suddenly, she saw the reviews about him. She saw the inappropriate comments and thoughts about him being obsessed with otaku culture and that he preferred 2D girls. The girl nervously read all the reviews about the man. She was shocked by what he was hiding behind his appearance. She wanted to quickly leave the place and not face all these inappropriate secrets about the person, but someone stopped her, holding her by the shoulder. It was the lady from the hair salon who had also come to eat at their establishment. She said that if the girl kept acting carelessly, she might end up in the hospital again. Gong Gijoo didn't want to turn back to her, but she couldn't help it. As she glanced at the woman, she saw the reviews about her. It turned out that beneath her modest appearance, the woman hid bold fantasies. The girl blushed, closed her eyes with her hands, and mentally screamed, not wanting to know all these personal stuff about people she knew. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice calling her name. She stood there, afraid to open her eyes. Her palms seemed to be stuck to her face, numb from the tension. Her parents asked if everything was all right, but Gijoo couldn't bear the thought of reading the reviews about them. She quickly turned away. She didn't want to know anything about her parents' past relationships. From anxiety, the girl stood on the street, not knowing where to go. She stood there, thinking about what sins she had committed to deserve this. She never could have imagined that the secrets of some people could lead to such shocking revelations. No matter where she went, she saw reviews everywhere. The whole environment was filled with information she didn't want to know anything about. Gijoo was thinking about what she could do with this and how she could use it to her advantage. The girl's head was splitting from the overwhelming amount of information. She thought about how she didn't have to wear it all the time, but on the other hand, she was eager to discover all the abilities of the ring. Suddenly, her thoughts were interrupted by the noise of students gathered at the entrance to the lecture hall. The girls immediately perked up, as it was none other than Yoon Hail, the Sunbae, who had arrived. Everyone knew that Hail's mother, the Sunbae, was the head of a well-known publishing house, and his father was a renowned novelist. Despite this, the guy never boasted about it. Gijoo wondered if he was truly that modest or if he was just pretending. There must be a reason why his rating is so low. Looking at him, she thought his rating would much higher than this. Noticing that the girl was looking at him intently, he smiled and waved at her with a friendly gesture. The girls at the back desk squealed with excitement, thinking that he was flirting with them. Gong Gijoo felt awkward. After witnessing her fighting with Jimin, the way he was acting toward her now felt so strange. The girl looked up and saw that the guy had approached her and offered her a bottle of water. He said that he bought enough for everyone, and there was one left for her as well. Then, he went off to take care of his own business. Gong Gijoo felt embarrassed. They weren't close friends, yet he had come over specifically to greet her and offer her a drink. Suddenly, she was distracted by the notifications coming through on her phone. It was Jimin, texting her, explaining that he didn't run away because he was scared that time. He had just had an audition. He also wrote that he had decided to break up with her. The girl stared at her phone, once again realizing what a mess he was. If you think about it, not only did Sunbae have a good reputation, but even Jimin did too. If someone decides to deceive, everyone will fall for it. She needed to find Jimin. If she couldn't get back the rent she had already paid, she would have to ask for the money to cover her hospital expenses. She didn't want to stay a fool until the end. She set out to find her ex-boyfriend. The girl was looking for the auditorium of the acting department hall, remembering that it should be somewhere around here. Approaching the door of the auditorium, Gijoo suddenly stopped when she heard Jimin talking with his friends. Gijoo stood frozen, listening in shock as Jimin proudly spoke about how he had informed her of their breakup. He laughed as he described how she begged him not to leave, how she screamed for him to stay, and when she realized he didn't want to be with her anymore, she had thrown food at him. Gijoo felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. What the hell is he talking about? She thought, her heart sinking. He's trying to make her look bad. The anger simmered inside her as she listened to Jimin, realizing how easily he was twisting things to suit his narrative. He was saying that she had thrown food on the floor, pushed him, and hit him in anger. He said he never thought Gijoo could behave like that. The guys were surprised by the girl's behavior. They said she was acting like a real crazy person. They discussed how she had been with all sorts of weirdos before. Sunbai joined in, agreeing that she was indeed strange. Jimin continued boasting, saying it was his fault. Knowing that Gijoo had no one else, he still ended their relationship. His friend objected, asking why he was at fault. Didn't he remember last year's incident with the leopard? He told another girl and Gijoo to start dating as a threesome, knowing full well that she wouldn't agree to that, and to break up with her. It turned out that Gijoo had been stalking him. The whole show was just to get her to stop following him. Gong Gijoo listened to all of this and couldn't believe that all guys were the same. She couldn't believe how easily guys fantasized about their relationships. They shifted their own flaws onto the shoulders of the girls and made them out to be crazy. There was nothing surprising about the fact that they all had such low ratings. The guys were curious about how Jimin did with his audition, especially since it was the place he had always wanted to be. He said that he had auditioned more than 10 times. It was a theater group he had loved since childhood, and the director was someone he had respected all his life. Then he proudly boasted that the last interview was just a formality. After all, everything was almost confirmed. The girl realized why he had sent her the breakup message, as he was confident that he would be accepted into the theater group. One of the guys suddenly said that this unpleasant incident with Gong Gijoo could be considered just a matter of bad luck. But she has a very beautiful body and an attractive appearance. The guys were saying that she was among the top 10 best girls. They turned to Jimin, asking him to tell them what she was really like. The only thing he regretted was that he hadn't done everything he had planned with her. Jimin smirked and said that she truly was a beauty, and there were many things he had planned to try. He took out his phone and started scrolling through photos of Gijoo. Then he said that if she begged him again, he'd definitely take her back. Why not make her beg just once? The girl stood behind the door, feeling her anger clouding her vision. Hearing all those vile things, she wondered what he was looking at on his phone while saying all of that. Jimin smugly told his friends that he had a few stunning photos of the girl and offered to show them. Everyone was eager to see those photos. They were curious to see just how stunning Gong Gijoo really was. The guys looked at Jimin's phone and, a little disappointed, asked if he had any photos where they could get a good look at the girl. He found it funny that Gijoo was too trusting girl. He smiled and said he wasn't going to share with them what was meant for his eyes only. Gong Gijoo couldn't take it anymore and entered the classroom. Unexpectedly for the guys, she grabbed the phone out of Jimin's hands. She was curious about what her ex-boyfriend was so proud of. After all, she had sent him many photos, and they were all different in content. She saw her photo from Kakao Talk. She looked very attractive in it. The girl held the phone in her hands, deleted the entire album of photos. She was really glad that she dared to do it. She felt much better and took pride in her action. The girl held the phone in her hands, deleted the entire album of photos. She was really glad that she dared to do it. She felt much better and took pride in her action. Then she decided that wasn't enough, and to make sure the bastard wouldn't recover anything, she put the phone on the table and unscrewed the cap off the bottle and poured water on it. The friends of Jimin stared in astonishment at what the girl was doing. They shouted that the girl was truly crazy. First, she hit him when he suggested breaking up, and now she was acting like a bully. Shaking with anger, she gritted through her teeth. If she hit him, then where did the bruises on her face come from? Jimin didn't like the fact that the girl was exposing him in front of his friends. He tried to shut her up as quickly as possible. He grabbed her by the arm and quickly dragged her out of the classroom. The guy pulled her to a secluded spot where no one could hear their conversation. He tried to figure out what she was up to, since people were watching them. He insisted that she take responsibility if his reputation started to suffer because of her actions. Gong Gijoo replied, if his reputation was so important to him, he shouldn't have been making up such nonsense and telling lies about their relationship. The guy bristled and wanted to find out what she was going to do. Would she spread rumors about his actions? He hoped she would leave out the fact that he had hit her and pushed her down the stairs. The girl asked why would she keep it to herself, and why did he think he could tell her what she could and could not do? Sneering, he said that he had thought she was smart, but right now her mind wasn't working at all. He was thinking about her, so he did it. He explained that he needed to tell everyone it was her who hit him and ended the relationship, so it'll seem like she have the upper hand in the relationship. He said that if he had mentioned that she paid for the rent and his education and then left him after he hit her, no one would have pity on her. Of course not, because she was already being called a naive fool, and if the truth came out, they might humiliate her even more. Jimin said he was doing it out of nobility because they were once a couple. The girl remembered that her friends had hinted that her boyfriend wasn't as good as she thought. She transferred all her money to him, did everything to ensure his success. Lovers really do turn into idiots. His friends said that she only dates idiots and losers, that she's really weird and acts like a lunatic. Gong Gijoo listened to his stupid remarks and accusations. He blamed her for being kind to him and helping him. Jimin got tired of saying the same thing over and over. He decided to end the conversation since they had already parted on bad terms and he had nothing more to say. The guy said he had an important meeting and didn't have time to worry about it. He left the girl alone in the university courtyard. He suggested not arguing and just forgetting everything. Henny told others about them. She thought he'd at least feel a little bit ashamed, but it turned out as if he was right and all of it was her fault. Just as people had written in their reviews, he was a real jerk. Suddenly, she remembered the names of the girls who had written reviews about Jimin. The girl was pounding her fists against the wall, unable to understand what to do with all the information she had learned thanks to the ring. Lost in her thoughts, she didn't immediately notice that Yoon-hae, Sunbai, was standing next to her. The guy looked at her in surprise, took the cigarette out of his mouth and greeted her. Gong Gijoo lifted her head and noticed her Sunbai standing next to her. She couldn't understand how long he had been standing there. She blushed and wondered why he always appeared wherever she looked pathetic and nervous. Then she got scared, thinking he might have heard the entire conversation she had with Jimin. The guy, seeing her confused expression, said that he hadn't tried to eavesdrop. It was all just a coincidence. He said that the situation seemed too complicated to just walk up and greet her. Besides, he didn't want to leave her alone with that guy unattended. Gong Gijoo was surprised. Was he trying to protect her from Jimin, or was it simply curiosity that made him stay and watch them? The girl wondered why they always seemed to run into each other in such ridiculous situations. She asked him to keep what he had just heard and seen a secret. She promised that in return, she would fulfill any wish of his. The girl squeezed her eyes shut, thinking that Jimin had never helped her with anything, and maybe it was lucky that it was Hail who had accidentally found out the truth about their relationship. To her surprise, the guy pretended to think for a moment and then said that he had a wish. He smiled and asked if she was hungry, then suggested they go have lunch together. Soon, they found themselves in a nice, quiet restaurant where they could talk peacefully and enjoy a delicious meal. She hadn't expected him to take her to such a nice place to eat. She thought he meant a regular cafe. She wondered if Sunbai was that kind of guy. Hale suggested they have a sip of some really delicious wine. The girl was very hungry and immediately started eating, but she couldn't understand why he was looking at her so strangely. The guy said that he had wanted to talk to her for a long time, and the situation had turned out in such a way that they unexpectedly ended up meeting. Gijoo was surprised and didn't understand why he wanted to talk specifically to her. The guy smiled and said that it was exactly like that. He was curious why the girl even avoided looking him in the eyes. Gong Gijoo nearly choked on her food from such an honest remark. She tried to lift her eyes and look at him, but for some reason she felt uneasy. She experienced a slight discomfort from meeting his gaze. Yoon Hale sat relaxed, smiling, and said that even now she was avoiding his gaze as if she were shy or scared. Then he leaned his head towards the girl and said that it's better when, during a conversation, the speakers look each other in the eyes. The girl tried to look at him, but she couldn't. Her gaze always dropped to the ground because she didn't want to see all those reviews again. Finally, Gijoo gathered the courage and looked at the guy. He seemed so kind and well-mannered, and she couldn't understand where all the negative reviews had come from. There were so many of them that Gijoo had trouble counting. Could he really have had that many girlfriends? All the reviews spoke of him being a terrible womanizer and a charming playboy. The reviews were from girls who were in love with him, begging for a chance to meet him and sharing stories of the good times they had spent in his company. Because of that, the girl blushed with embarrassment. The girl felt awkward, realizing that she couldn't be around a guy like him. She thought that it would be better to take off the ring so that nothing would distract her. Closing one eye, she was sure that the comments would disappear and she'd be able to talk to him peacefully. But suddenly, amidst the flood of reviews, the girl saw a familiar name. The guy didn't know how to react to the girl's behavior. She was acting strangely, closing and then wide-opened her eyes as if trying to see something in him. When the girl reached her hands toward his face, he slightly leaned back in surprise. Gijoo leaned forward, trying to touch the review from Sung Gayong. To her surprise, the girl realized that she could touch the reviews, scroll through them, and even enlarge them. The sight was strange. From the outside, it looked as though the girl had lost her mind. Gijoo decided to keep only the review from Sung Gayong and collapse all the others. Suddenly, she saw another name, Kim Ji-hye. As she read the reviews, she realized that her Sunbae and Jimin had been dating the same girls. How could this have happened? She couldn't understand. If her information about the girls was correct, then these girls could be from their university. The girl was thinking that maybe her Sunbae still had their phone numbers when she was distracted by Hale's voice. Gijoo was so engrossed in looking at the reviews that she didn't realize she was practically sitting on top of the guy and pressing her breasts into him. The guy offered to explain what was going on and why she was behaving like this. Does anything bother her at the moment? Seeing that she was looking at him with a confused expression, he blushed and said that her hands were on his chest. And that's when the girl came to her senses and realized how it must all look from the outside. He wasn't exactly opposed to it. In fact, he even liked it, despite the fact that everyone in the restaurant was watching at them. Gong Gijoo blushed, realizing what the guy must have thought of her. She quickly jumped away from the guy, trying to apologize for her behavior. Gijoo said that she had been lost in thought for a moment. She really felt very embarrassed about her behavior. The guy smiled sincerely and said he would forgive her if she told him what she had been thinking about. She asked for permission to ask him a question. She wondered if he happened to know Sung Gayong and Kim Ji-hye. She needed to tell them something, but she couldn't get in touch with them. The guy was surprised, but he was curious about why she needed to talk to those girls. The girl became more enthusiastic and asked if he could give her their phone numbers or links to their Instagram profiles. The guy smirked slyly and replied that he wasn't sure what to do. He agreed to give her the girl's contacts but asked if she would fulfill his request in return. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. New videos every day. Write me in the comments what you thought of this story and what manhwa you would like to see next. See you in the next installment.